WW2 Whiskey Gaming, and this is my not really late review, actually preview of Call of Duty World War II. I played it on the Xbox One. It's also available on the PS4 and PC. So I will address it right away. I'm not really going to talk too much about, well, anything other than gameplay and controls and whatnot, because audio not super important because it's multiplayer. The sound effects were good, and that's important, obviously. Music not as huge of a deal, and the voiceover working in multiplayer doesn't really mean shit. And since it's multiplayer, there's no zombie mode, there's no campaign, there's no story to really speak of, or at all, so no point in even attempting to address that. So let's just jump into the gameplay, which, first things first, are the game modes. There were an okay amount, obviously, or hopefully, there will be more in the actual game. One thing that made the beta really disappointing for me is there was no hardcore mode. I find hardcore mode to be my favorite way of playing any of the different matches because it eliminates the bullshit of the balancing of the guns, would be the best way to word it in my opinion. You pick a gun that maybe fires a little slower, is supposed to hit way heavier, you open fire and you hit a guy 3 times and he's fine, he whips around and his gun can piss 25 bullets that do like 1/5 of the damage, and somehow he kills you. So hardcore mode is a way of eliminating that kind of bullshit. So the fact that it was not in there, that really bothered me about the beta. I assume it will be in the main game, but I gotta admit, if it's not, that's gonna be a huge knock. There were an okay amount of gameplay modes. Obviously, I hope there were more. If there are not, that would be tragic. You had your basics though, domination, team deathmatch, and then the newest game mode, I have to say, is just taken straight from Battlefield 1. I hate making that comparison because I like to judge a game on its own merits, but Battlefield 1 did that, and then Call of Duty basically just took it and made it smaller scale. And by that I mean it's a game mode on a fairly large map, or if you're playing on Battlefield, a very large map, where you go from section to section to section of the map, completing objectives on each, or being pushed back. If you're the defenders, you're moving forward against the enemy, essentially, or keeping them in place. And they have that now in Call of Duty. I can't remember the exact name of it off the top of my head, but it's interesting, but it's way smaller scale, and I guess it has to do that to remain Call of Duty, because otherwise, if it was on the same level, like 64 players on each team kind of thing, it would just be Battlefield all over again. So it's got to do something to lessen that. But I did play it, and I actually did enjoy that game mode. And I enjoyed Team Deathmatch. Those are 2 of my favorites. Domination was fair enough. It was domination. It's nothing new. A lot of the stuff is nothing new in reality. So you can customize your character, which is again nothing new. They've been doing that for a while, but now it's all World War II themed rather than modern warfare themes or future warfare themes. You can get your gun and customize it, and that is of course World War II weaponry, although admittedly better than World at War because a lot of the weapons are automatic rather than just semi-automatic or bolt action. So that was nice. I did find in more than a few matches that the submachine guns seemed to be a little overpowered, but again, maybe that was just because I was playing in normal mode and not hardcore, and they pissed rounds faster than my assault rifle. I will also add a caveat. I am not the greatest multiplayer gamer that has ever lived. I'm mediocre on my best days. I generally balance my positives with my negatives, but it happens that I'm not the greatest. That having been said, I do prefer hardcore mode because I find it to be a balancing agent. Overall, from a gameplay standpoint, I didn't find a lot of really amazing stuff in this game that made me go, wow, this truly stands out. Hopefully the campaign and like the zombie mode will actually do that, but as it stands, the multiplayer is pretty standard fare. Let's get on to the controls, which it's Call of Duty. I mean, what do you want me to say? The controls are excellent. They're incredibly responsive. I didn't have any problems with them, but it's Call of Duty. That's been the case for, well, ever pretty much. I mean, they've been making these games for a very long time, and well, Call of Duty 4 had magnificent controls like 10 years ago or something, so it's not really surprising. Okay, so graphically speaking, it's kind of hard to say how good this game looks. From what I could tell, it looked very good. I did enjoy the environments and the maps, although I will say a few of them feel a little too familiar. Some of them feel like maybe they just picked pieces out of old maps and put them together into a new one, but again, hard to say. It was a beta. I didn't get to invest insane amounts of time into it expect just a weekend's worth. That having been said, like I said, graphically, I can't really tell. I can't sit here and say this is gorgeous or this is shit. I find that's much easier to do in something like the campaign, because in the campaign you can actually take moments to sit there and look at what's going on and just examine the environment, the other characters, whereas in something like zombie mode, which is not in this, or multiplayer, you're running around pretty frantically the majority of the time. You're almost constantly worried about what's about to happen next because you never know what's going to be around that corner or what's sneaking up behind you, so it's hard to pay attention to what the game looks like overall. That having been said, from what I could tell, it was a fairly good looking game. Okay, so to wrap this up, this is a preview, not a full review. I will review the full game when it comes out, but as it stands, the multiplayer didn't necessarily excite me any more than any other Call of Duty multiplayer has. I would have liked to have been able to play like 30 minutes of the campaign. Maybe that would have gotten me more excited. Like I said, I'm going to review this, but as it stands, I'm not any more excited for it than I have been for any other Call of Duty in recent years. Okay, so in the comments below, why don't you tell me if you're gonna pick up the new Call of Duty, if you're a Call of Duty fan at all. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, and if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.